Would you rather play one-on-one versus each other, or we combine our talents in a two-on-two game against Joshua Perry and Jake Butt of Red Corner, Blue Corner? Bring up the pictures so we can kind of see the competition of who we have. And these two guys right there. Now, I will say this, that they got us in the height department, Harrison, so we're missing about 5 to 6 inches, maybe even a little bit more than that in terms of height against these guys. So it'll be a physical game. Joshua Perry, former linebacker for Ohio State, and Jake Butt, former tight end for the University of Michigan. So what do you think, man? You want to go one-on-one against each other or challenge these guys in a 2v2? And the winner will get $100. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'll team up with you, Cam. I'm a team player here. I think that's the only way to do this thing. You don't want us to go one-on-one against each other.
Yeah. I got you, man, because we're trying to keep the peace. We're not trying to disrupt the peace on ITA. So I'm with you, my man. And at some point, they're going to have to guard since we are quicker and a little bit smaller than them.
Oh, man, that was Cam Smith, Harrison Sanford. They host Inside the Association here on Stadium. I don't think you'll be seeing either one of them today because they wanted to take a day off on the day where we have a rebuttal for that blasphemy. Now, Jake, I'll just lob this one up to you because I know you feel passionately about it, and then I'll clean it up there at the end.
First off, it's 2v2, so they can't. There's nowhere to hide. Like we have the size advantage that benefits us in 2v2. I also think the fact that we were rivals in college plays into our chemistry today. So we got the chemistry down, Pat. I know you're fluid, you're quick, you can handle the ball, so can I. We can move across the court. I don't really particularly think this is even going to be close, JP.
The fact that they called the quickness into question there, I think, was the biggest mistake they could have made because I took that as personal disrespect. So let's start right there. I'm going to let them know what's coming too when we get out there on that basketball court. First play, Jake's lobbing it up to me, and I'm dunking on somebody. Whoever's standing under the rim is getting dunked on, so just be prepared for that.
And that's after I cross one of them up like Kobe did before he lobbed it to Shaq back in the finals.
Boy, this is going to be a good
We're
one.
setting this up, though.
Got to make it happen.
This is going to happen.
Got to make it happen. Roll the open. All right, y'all know what time it is. Red Corner, Blue Corner right here on Stadium. Jake Butt, the Michigan Wolverine, my guy, two-time All-American, Mackey Award winner, just all-around wonderful human being.
And this is Joshua, a.k.a. Mini Shaq Perry, national champion, and bangs down on the block, all right? That's my teammate here and on the court.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And we got a great program coming your way here today. We got some news and notes from the Big Ten to get through, of course. And then we're going to do some confidence picks for some bowl games. Should be a lot of fun. But before we get to all of that, we want you to make sure you scan that QR code that's right there on the screen so you can submit your content. Also, follow us on Instagram at @redcorner_Blue Corner. But we've been talking a lot about Nebraska football and some of the moves that they're making here in recruiting, trying to finish up their class. One of the names that popped up, the Ohio State quarterback that hopped into the transfer portal in Kyle McCord. And the reports are now that he will not be joining Nebraska. Instead, he's leaving his recruitment open. When you saw this news come across, what were your initial thoughts?
I was a bit shocked because it seemed like reports last week had this sharpied in that this was a done deal already, that McCord was going to go and that Raiola was also going to go, and it sounded like Nebraska has their quarterbacks for today, tomorrow, and the future. So I was a little bit shocked, but it seems like the fit doesn't work. I guess where I'm at with this, too, is this is the risk in the transfer portal, right? McCord, he's not going to find a better situation than the one he had in Columbus, right? Assuming he was able to compete and win the job. Nebraska, I liked the fit, but now I don't know where he's going to go. And again, this is the risk with the portal, JP.
Yeah, I mean, reports from 247 are saying that Syracuse is a team to look out for. It seems like that would be a big step back, and I'm not exactly sure what they have in terms of talent to surround Kyle McCord with. I think the operative phrase that you used, Jake, was if he could compete to win that job. And I think that part of the thought process for him leaving Columbus, if we are to believe the reports that are out there, is that he wasn't willing to say that I'm going to spend my last seasons in college football trying to win a job. I want to go somewhere I could play. So Nebraska opens up. He's looking at that roster saying, I know I am better than the quarterbacks on this roster. This was a passing offense that looked worse than Iowa's at times. And now all of a sudden, 5-star quarterback, being recruited, and he's like, am I going to have to go through this thing where I actually do end up having to compete for this job when I got into the portal so I could go somewhere and play right away? And so I do think from that standpoint, it would make some sense. And I do not fault guys necessarily that are veteran players for getting in the portal and saying, I am going to play the final days of my career instead of sitting on the bench in a game where you can't play when you're done with college if you're not going to the league anyway.
Yeah, I think Nebraska's actually, I like where they're at as a program. I like where they're at as a team. I think they had some young receivers that showed out this year, showed some great flashes when there really wasn't a lot of opportunity to do that with the way Nebraska ran their offense. I like their tight ends. Thomas Fidone was once the #1 tight end in high school, so they're in a good place. And I'm sitting here and saying, Ohio State doesn't have a quarterback. Well, they're saying it's Devin Brown. We will see. And McCord doesn't have a home. Okay, maybe it's Syracuse. I wonder how we got here, JP, right? It's like you would have thought Ohio State let go of McCord because they felt they had someone locked in. And who is that person? I don't know.
I think that's a little bit of the gamble there. And I think that the way that this all works out will tell us a lot about Ryan Day, because it seems that Kyle McCord, 5-star guy, either he could not develop him or he missed in recruiting, missed on an evaluation somewhere. And so that part is done. If you do not go out and get a portal quarterback and say that you have the quarterback of the future on your roster, either Devin Brown or Lincoln Kienholz, and neither one of those guys ends up being the guy that we think they could be, what their recruiting rankings say, this is a knock on the old Ryan Day as a quarterback developer, right? Like, that's what he's known for. And if you come out of next year and there's not a quarterback that looks something like what we've seen the past 3-4 seasons, it's going to be a bad deal.
But I look at Ryan Day the same as in a same light, and I look at Ohio State in the same light as I look at like Lincoln Riley, where there is a literal proven track record. Every quarterback going back to what, like JT Barrett, maybe even Braxton, right? If you played quarterback at Ohio State, you went to New York for the Heisman ceremony, right? You were winning the player of the year, the offensive player of the year, multiple first-round draft picks. Ohio State recruits receivers as well as anybody. The defense is in a great position, so you know you got that part. And they got funds from an NIL. Like, to me, I was like, this is one of the more desirable places. If I was a quarterback, this is one of the more desirable places to go. And I'm just shocked. I know I keep saying it. I am shocked to see us here.
All right, well, then let's lean into Nolan's comment here. It says, I wonder if guys like McCord should have just danced with the girl that brought him. Is it a concern that he'd lose his job next year? I think that's a lot of what it has to do with, right? I think that there is an urgency as a collegiate football player to make sure you're on the field. And I understand where guys get with that. It just ends up sometimes that the grass may not be greener on the other side.
Is it a concern that he'd lose his job? So when this news came out, I think we all assumed it meant Ohio State had a guy that they loved in the portal, almost ready to come, right? But now you're sitting here and saying, okay, he might have been concerned he was going to lose his job to Devin Brown, a guy he already beat and outplayed this whole season.
Okay, but let's talk about what actually happened there, right? Because that wasn't a home run pick coming out of training camp. We were debating basically leading into week 3, right?
Yeah.
And both of them were splitting snaps, although Kyle McCord was getting the lion's share. They go in week 4 and they play that game against Notre Dame, and Kyle McCord leads a game-winning drive, which could have been an interception on that drive we'll talk about. But the idea that you would now go back to a different quarterback after he won that game on the road is crazy. Then Devin Brown starts to get banged up. I look at the Wisconsin game as an opportunity. Kyle McCord turns the football over 3 times, but there's no other guy to put in there, right? And so I think things really lined up for Kyle McCord to maybe hold on to the job, but he could have seen the writing on the wall of a more talented guy that might have been behind him, developing a little bit, and it could have been a real competition for him once again. Not to say he would have lost that job, but there is urgency when you're sitting there saying, is this actually mine or not?
And I agree. And look, you mentioned that he missed a lot of throws in the Penn State game. I know they won it. He missed throws.
He had that play, too, where he put the ball on the ground against Penn State. And if it weren't for Kalen King having to hold Marvin Harrison Jr. to guard him, that could have been a pivotal play in that game.
Yep. And you know what? It's addition by subtraction. If you don't want to be here, okay, maybe it's best we part ways. So understandable. One situation that didn't just part ways, this is now a big, beautiful marriage. It's Rutgers and Greg Schiano. I know you love Coach Schiano. I do as well. So Greg Schiano and Rutgers have agreed to a contract extension that will keep him with the Scarlet Knights through 2030. He gets a bump in salary next year to $6.25 million per year, which is an increase up from $4 million per year. What do you like about this move, JP?
Well, I like the fact that Greg Schiano is a guy who had built at Rutgers in the past, and now he's back. And it feels like he's building once again. They don't necessarily get to recruit the best guys, but he does get to recruit some pretty good talent over there in New Jersey. I know you played with some Jersey guys. I played with some Jersey guys as well. They got some good high school football there, and he's leaning into that. He's leaning into how tough he needs to be of a program. He's leaning into what his roots are as a defensive guy. And those defenses have really supported that team. And now the offense is starting to come along. You got Kyle Monungai, and he's coming back. They had a few guys announce that they were coming back to finish off their careers. So maybe they got the NIL thing working up there as well. And the one piece that has to continue to develop is the quarterback play. And I think over time he'll be able to get that. But you have a guy who has told you on multiple occasions that this is the only place he wants to be. Greg Schiano has no interest in leaving Rutgers to go pursue a bigger, better job. If he could retire there, he would retire there.
You called him a program builder. He is a program builder. That's how he's referred to himself. And I think about this for two reasons. One, he's coaching in the Big Ten East. Tough sledding, man. Tough sledding. You're sharpening in 3 losses every year in your division just by having to play Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. So now you do away with divisions. I understand the conference as a whole will be more challenging, but that benefits him. I also think this is just a great example of knowing yourself. What's Socrates say? Know thyself. You know, there's been a lot of teams where things have been good, but not good enough. And in the pursuit of chasing something better, they end up taking step backs as a program. Nebraska's an example. I think Schiano has done a good job, exactly as you said, JP. He's laid the foundation, and he's got this program trending in the right direction. If they get the quarterback figured out, watch out.
Yeah, I think they're a program, to your point, that said, we were bowl eligible a lot earlier than anybody would have anticipated us being this season, and we want to reward our coach with that because we know we're headed in the right direction. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, we're just getting started here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. When we return, we are joined by the one and only Sam Brief, and we will explain just how hard it is to pick some Big Ten bowl games this year. Army Bowl, featuring some of the top high school recruits from around the country, will be streaming for free here on Stadium. You can tune in on Monday, December 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to watch.
Man, free football. I'm always here for it.
Free.
But we got to welcome in one of our favorite people to the studio here for Red Corner, Blue Corner. Sam Brief, 2023 American Association Broadcaster of the Year. And Sam, you got a little treat for us. What are we doing today?
It's bowl season. Everything is a treat. We're coming up on the holidays. So my gift to you is that we're going to break down your bowl picks. And just in the spirit of merriment that this time of year brings, we're going to start with all the picks that you agree on. We took all the bowls that Big Ten teams now or later are in. So that counts all the teams out west. This is what we agree on, right? No issue. Maybe we'll break down some of them later. But here you see Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, and a bunch, all three in agreement. So that's enough of the good stuff. Let's get to what you guys disagree on, because I'm always here to watch Jake and Joshua argue, and then I just stand here in the middle and look a lot smaller than you two. So let's start with Jake's lovely alma mater, the University of Michigan, looking for a national championship, but they've got to get through Nick Saban's Bama. Joshua, you've got the Tide. Jake, you, of course, have the Wolverines. Let's hear from you first, Jake.
Well,
Why Michigan?
Yeah, I'm a little bit shocked because, Joshua, this is a path you took yourself. You understood to win your national championship. It was Ezekiel Elliott, 85 yards right through the heart of the South, right? So this feels exactly like that to me. We've agreed on this show all year. I believe you have as well, that Michigan's been the best team in college football. I understand the challenge that is ahead of them, but I do believe you bang your head against the ceiling, and then eventually you refocus and you break through. To me, this is the year that Michigan breaks through. I think they get it done.
Yeah, I actually took the opposite path because we were the 4 seed, and so that's why I'm rolling with the Tide here. And the fact of the matter is, I cannot shake this idea of the Jim Harbaugh postseason record when you juxtapose it against what Nick Saban has been able to do, specifically in the college football playoff era. This guy knows how to win the titles. I think that Jalen Milroe presents a really unique challenge because there's not a quarterback in the Big Ten that has a skill set like what he has. And of course, he'll be able to prepare for it with some of the personnel on Michigan's roster. Defense will be ready, but I think it's really hard to adjust to that style of play. I think it gives Alabama an edge.
Let me respond to that, because one thing that's encouraging is Bama's offensive line has given up pressure and they've given up sacks. They've struggled to, and that's going to play a factor in this game. Michigan's defense is veteran. You know how valuable that is when you have to implement schemes to slow down a running quarterback. It's not just about talent. It's about discipline and scheme. I think they can do this. I understand Jim Harbaugh's postseason record. It reminds me of early in Harbaugh's Michigan coaching career with his record versus his rivals, his record versus Ohio State. We said that was who he was until he wasn't, until he broke through. This is the next thing for Coach Harbaugh to break through. I understand the postseason record, but something's got to give eventually. This is the year they get it done.
I got no rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
I'm sticking with my pick.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm on this side because I've got Bama. I'm rolling with the Tide. Hey, let's go on to Iowa and Tennessee. This is a really interesting one. You've got the team that got shut out by Michigan in the Big Ten championship game against a really explosive SEC team. Iowa, Tennessee, let's start with you now. Why Iowa?
Well, I don't trust just about anything in this football game. I do not trust Tennessee on offense. I do not trust them on defense. I do not trust Iowa on offense, but I do trust the Iowa Hawkeyes defense. And that's why I put my confidence with the Hawkeyes. I don't have a ton of confidence in the result of this game, but I think that is one of the best individual units in college football, and that's what they're going to ride with.
You're making me a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. When you're talking, you're making me a little bit nervous. But then I'm reminded of the truth and why I picked Tennessee. And I actually picked them with a high degree of confidence. And the reason I did that is I look at where Iowa's at this season. I look at the Big Ten West. We've had a number of conversations. It was a down year in the Big Ten. It was a down year in the Big Ten West. So how about what happens when Iowa plays a quality opponent? Michigan, Penn State. Not too good. Now, I know Tennessee, they've had a wide range of on-field play, but I will say Tennessee's probably the third best opponent that Iowa's faced all season. I'm picking that trend line to say Iowa can win all the winnable games against lesser teams, but they struggle against teams with legit talent.
I mean, how do you beat a team when you don't have an offense? Iowa's got the best position group, but also the worst position group.
The defense can score, and Joe Milton might throw it to him.
Okay, so a couple pick sixes to win it for Iowa.
He might.
Okay, so that's a big disagreement. Huge disparity there. How about we go now to Minnesota and Bowling Green? This is a really interesting matchup because the Golden Gophers are going to play a backup quarterback with almost no experience. You're rolling Minnesota.
Yeah.
You go Bowling Green. Let's start with that.
Yeah, I think Minnesota's another one of those teams where I can ask, where's the offensive production been? And I think that's going to be a real challenge, especially when you're going with a guy in Cole Kramer, who's more of a wildcat backup quarterback, does not have that many pass attempts throughout his career. I also believe in this idea that every single season, a team from the MAC will beat a Big Ten team. You know what didn't happen in out-of-conference play this year? A team from the MAC did not beat a Big Ten team. It's going to happen in bowl season, though, and that's why Bowling Green's going to win.
You're convincing. You're convincing. But I have to tell you the truth. We say they're playing with a backup quarterback. They don't throw the ball anyways. They don't really take shots down the field anyways. Cole Kramer, we need you to throw it 11 times, and 8 of those will be off play action. The rest will be like hitches on 1st and 10 versus off coverage. But here's why I'm saying this. There is an art to winning post-game, as we talked about with Coach Harbaugh. You know PJ Fleck's record? One of the best postseason records. I think he's 4-0 at Minnesota. He's on a hot streak. Postseason matters for PJ.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that between Iowa and Minnesota, the Big Ten is going to put out some absolutely atrocious offense during bowl season.
Yes, absolutely. That's what you're hearing.
Okay, we're all in agreement on that, I guess. Hey, let's move on to a game that you guys agree on that I'm actually on the outside looking in here, and that is the Peach Bowl. We got Penn State and Ole Miss, another good old Big Ten SEC matchup. I want to hear from you first. Why Penn State?
Well, I'll answer, but I want to hear from you too. Okay, you can't dodge this one. You're going to have to explain this one. Why Penn State is I think this team, this is just a well-built team. I think what we obviously know is the offense has struggled this year, right? I understand Manny Diaz is gone. I still trust the defense, but I do believe with this month of time to prepare, I do believe it gives Drew Aller a chance to settle in and breathe. I do believe it's going to help these young backs refocus, get healthy. I do believe the offense will show up and be the difference in this game because I trust Penn State's defense.
That's where I'm at as well. I think Drew Aller becomes a better player with a month to prepare in this game, and hopefully they let him throw the ball down the daggone field because that's what he wants to do. I agree with you on the run game there. I think the defense is going to be maybe a bit of a question because Chop Robinson with the opt-out and everything, but they're a well-built unit. Even if Manny Diaz isn't on the sideline, is a well-built unit. And so for me, I feel like I like the construction of Penn State a little bit more than I do Ole Miss. And I don't know if I trust Lane Kiffin like that.
You don't think you trust Lane Kiffin? Well, how about Jackson Dart? He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. His numbers in the SEC, they were right up there with the Heisman winner, Jaden Daniels. I trust that Ole Miss offense. I think it's the best unit on the field, even though Penn State's defense balls out. Not enough explosiveness in the Nittany Lions offense. Give me Lane Kiffin, give me the Rebels to win the Peach Bowl. Hey, before we stop with picks, I need to hear about this next game. Okay. Because Joshua Perry, proud alum of The Ohio State University.
Yeah.
Jake Butt, you're a Michigan man. But you are putting more confidence in Ohio State to take down Missouri than this man is. So what do you have to say for yourself, Joshua?
Well, I think there's been a little disruption within the program. Obviously, starting quarterback transfer, so there's always going to be a question about how a backup would perform, especially in postseason with a game that actually matters for guys, at least on the other side, playing in it. Now, Ohio State's got a lot of guys that said they're committed to playing in this game, and that gives me some more confidence. The mentality of Missouri to finish off the season that they had with a win over a brand like Ohio State, though, that's a dangerous edge, and that's what takes my confidence away.
I've come to understand when everybody is so certain of something happening, I think the opposite sometimes happens. And it seems like everyone's just sold all their Ohio State stock, and I've wondered, why? All the defensive guys are playing. Ohio State wins games through their defense this year anyways. The defense keeps it close. Ryan Day is still a genius. He's going to scheme up some advantageous plays for Devin Brown. The Buckeyes get it done.
I'm with you both. More with you. I'd be stunned if Missouri wins this game. So we now want to hear from all of you guys. We're going to post the graphic of all of our picks on social media. Tell us, who you picking? Do you trust Ohio State? Who you got in the Peach Bowl? And of course, all those games we disagree on, we want to hear from you. Go Cats.
How about that? Now, this is an interesting bowl season, guys. We need your help. This is an excellent recap, as you can see right here. A bunch of toss-ups, but as Sam said, we encourage you guys to send us your picks at watchstadium.com/submit. please get involved and join us in our bowl picks.
Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Thanks, fellas.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back. This is Rivals Down South here on Stadium. The College Football Power Hour rolls right along. Shout out the Red Corner, Blue Corner guys. Great show from our guys Jake and Joshua, though. I don't know, dude. I'd be a little more scared of Mizzou if I was some of those Ohio State guys. But look, they're talking about bowl games tonight. You know what we got, Mike? We got schedule talk. Yeah. And this is how broken my brain is, right? On one hand, it sounds like I'm being tongue-in-cheek and being flippant because I am. Because I'm a human being that I can engage with nuance, right? And so I can understand that it is absurd and obsessive and weird to care about a 2024 schedule release to the matter that I do, but I love it. And I know you love it. And we've been breaking it down from all angles for about 16 to 18 hours. And I saw you and Cousin Shane reacting live last night. We'll get to it all here at Rivals. Mike, SEC Mike, I should say. What's going on, man? How we feeling today? You excited?
Oh, this is Christmas before Christmas for me, T-Bob. I've been called for this for a long time. Typically what the SEC does, I mean, this is a non-event usually. They just release it usually late September, early October, in the middle of the season. It makes no news. It's not noteworthy whatsoever. Now they finally, with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the league, 2-hour special. I'm going to be talking about this thing for the next month.
Yeah, we're moving closer and closer to the NFLization of college football. And I get it. In some ways, that's not ideal. You're going to lose some of the quirkiness, but in a lot of ways, it kind of is. It means we get better matchups, right? And what's the NFL so good at doing? Making every single piece of information that they leak out to you an event. And that's what the SEC has now accomplished as well. Remember, if you want to get your takes in on the show, youtube.com/watchstadium, or you can submit questions, videos, takes to watchstadium.com/submit. All right, this is what we're going to do here. We're going to start with our top 3 games. And this is going to be SEC only, right? So we're not going to include Texas, Michigan here. We're not going to include LSU, USC, which are very exciting. I mean, A&M's got a Notre Dame game, so there's a lot of exciting out of conference. We're going to stay in conference, top 3 games to decide the SEC, and then we'll get to some scheduling winners and losers. SEC, Mike, what is your number 1 game to decide the Southeastern Conference in 2024?
Yeah, if we want to talk just games I'm excited about, T-Bob, this would take the entire show. But the what we're trying to narrow down here is the ones that will decide the outcome. We're doing away with divisions so that every game matters. And I think one that'll be critical, Georgia at Texas next season. One playoff team, one should have been a playoff team. Both these teams are going to be in the conversation for the 12-team playoff next fall. I cannot wait for Georgia's first trip there to Austin as SEC foes.
Should have been a playoff team. Well, then, maybe Kirby should have beat Nick Saban. I don't know what to tell you, dude. The game should matter. No, I mean, obviously, look, that game speaks for itself, right? It's top 5 team on top 5 team. It's Quinn Ewers returning. It's likely Carson Beck returning. It's the same weekend that F1 is going down in Austin. Good luck anybody getting hotels. We discussed on the show the other day. Georgia fans connecting the dots, realizing F1 did this to screw over the dogs. Ridiculous how much pull Austin has. Well, look, for my game that I'm excited about, again, we're going to stay a little chalky here. I'm looking at Georgia and Alabama, Bryant-Denny in the red light of Tuscaloosa, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Kirby going to be looking for revenge. And really, Georgia fans, this means a lot to Georgia, right? Mike, Georgia, and I'm guilty of this because I think a lot of us college football prognosticators ran with this. We all kind of counted Georgia's chickens before they hatched, right? We said Georgia had officially supplanted Nick Saban. Saban's time was done. Obviously, Alabama's still great, but Georgia is the new team to beat. Well, all of a sudden now, Kirby Smart remains winless against Nick Saban in Atlanta. Alabama's the team heading back to the playoff. And now Georgia next year in a game that they'll really need to win to regain that confidence. They're going to have to go into Tuscaloosa and do it. And it's going to be a way better and way more seasoned Jalen Milroe they're going to run into.
Yeah, not only that, T-Bob, but with the entire SEC package being under the same umbrella, we already have the kickoff times for that for notable games, including that one. It's going to be in Tuscaloosa. We just threw it on the screen, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central.
Yes.
So it's going to be a night game, and we're going to get away. You LSU people, you Swamp people, you're going to love this, T-Bob, because every marquee LSU game, there's not going to be any more 3:30. LSU always wants to play at night. They're going to get every marquee game at night, with it all being under the umbrella. We don't have to be slaves to the CBS on SEC no longer. Yeah. I think this is more great news, and it's going to make this game a night game, which is just going to add to the anticipation all day Saturday.
It's going to be, again, you really, if you're a college football fan, and I know this is just schedule talking, so it seems crazy, but you have to pinch yourself because of how, LSU has 10 of 12 Power 5 games. They've got a couple Big Ten games in the mix against USC and Vegas to open us up, UCLA. All right, the third game we differ on a little bit in terms of deciding the SEC. I got Oklahoma, LSU. And this is a bit self-serving, but look, I think that in Oklahoma and LSU, you were talking about two teams under Brian Kelly, Brent Venables, and you look what Oklahoma did this year, the improvement that they showed, and granted, LSU's going to have to make some moves this offseason, but like these are two teams like that is going to be rivalry last week of the year. That is a game that could very well be a de facto playoff game. Like, yes, two teams will go to play in the SEC championship, the top two, but I would wager in a 12-team playoff, 4 to 5 SEC teams are going to make it any given year. And so you could have LSU and Oklahoma both floating around that 10 to 13 range. And this could be the game that maybe won't decide the conference, but could decide who makes the playoffs.
Well, I just hate the fact that they've put this game on rivalry weekend, because this is not a rivalry. And I know why they did it, because they wanted to match Texas and Texas A&M. I get it. But again, that feels a little weird to me. I like the points you've made, but I think by this point in the season, I think Oklahoma, they'll still be in it for the 12-team playoff, but I don't anticipate they'll be in it for the SEC title like LSU could. But one game that I've got in the middle of the schedule, T-Bob, Ole Miss, which I think will be undefeated at the time, at LSU. LSU has ruined the dream season for Lane Kiffin and company previously. I think that LSU game saved the season for Ole Miss this season, coming off that rough Alabama loss. I'm telling you now, T-Bob, get ready for it. Ole Miss, the hype is going to get out of control. I think they're going to be preseason top 10. I would argue maybe even preseason top 5, depending on some of the portal additions they may add in the coming weeks. I think Ole Miss will be one of the best teams in the country coming into LSU undefeated next season. That game's going to tell us a lot about both those programs.
As crazy as it is, I agree with your Ole Miss take. It is one of the reasons why, though, I think this Penn State bowl game is so important. Because that's a very winnable big game for Lane Kiffin. 11 wins, first time in school history if they get it done. Again, he could say, here's my marquee win, and you carry that. You carry Dart into an offseason, all of a sudden you're feeling really freaking good. And that's why, as we look at SEC Mike's 5 big schedule winners, Ole Miss, one of the reasons why they are number 1 in Mike's estimation. And I don't know about you, Mike, but when I think about schedule winners, I look at 2 things mainly. Who do you avoid? And when you play the good team, where do you play them? And I think I see how you arrived at Ole Miss, because I see no Alabama, I see no Texas. I do see Oklahoma and Georgia, but you get them both at home. And then you look at it out of conference schedule where you will start the season Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern. That is 4 games to tune up, get right, and try to reach your full potential.
Right, and it goes against every fiber of my being, T-Bob, to sit here and say, well, we can lose 2 games and we'll be fine. But that's the reality of it because of the 12-team playoff format. And like you said, Georgia at home, Oklahoma at home, at LSU, that critical game. I think Ole Miss going to be favored in every single game outside of those 3. And they may be even favored in 1 or 2 of those other 3. But if they can go 1-2 at LSU, Oklahoma and Georgia at home, if they can go 1-2 during that stretch, I think they're a playoff team. So I think they're the biggest winners of this SEC schedule release.
Number 2 on this list, we got Texas. And you could say, oh, but T-Bob, they have UGA. Well, yes, but again, they get UGA at home. And, they have OU. Well, they always play OU, so that's nothing new. If we just look at who got added to Texas' schedule, Mike, I think, everybody's schedule's hard, right, in this new SEC. But it is all relative. I don't know you could find a relative easier grouping than what Texas got outside of Georgia OU. Mississippi State, Vandy, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Texas A&M? Yes. What? Are we just trying to, somebody's trying to put Texas over the top. Somebody needs to get in that WWE writer room in Birmingham, figure out what the hell's going on. Texas is already over. They don't need any additional help. How did they get this?
Well, it goes to exactly what you're saying, T-Bob. I think there were some inner workings there. All this hype, all this anticipation of Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC. We cannot have these big brands falling flat on their face and just being complete flops as they debut in this conference. So we got to give Texas a bone. I also think, T-Bob, the last Texas A&M game, they played on the field. It was in College Station. A&M was adamant it's going to be in the College Station once they meet again. Maybe that's not quite fair to Texas, so they had to throw them a bone somehow, and I think they did it with this schedule here. So everything comes up Texas in this schedule release.
Okay, Mike, this is one that I don't understand here. Your number 3 winner, Oklahoma, because where I look, Texas A&M are both the new kids. And as we just said, Texas got handed a kind of a nice class schedule. Oklahoma looks like it's taken like multiple AP courses here. I think this Oklahoma schedule looks horrible.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but your first SEC game, you get it at home. You get South Carolina, Ole Miss again. I think Ole Miss is going to be really good. But Missouri, that's not a daunting road trip, even though I think Missouri's going to be really good. Alabama, you get them at home. I mean, and look at the way it sets up right out the gate. You're going to be 3-0. If you're not 3-0, there's something wrong. I would argue even 5-0 at Auburn and Tennessee at home. Those are games I think Oklahoma fans expect to win. Not saying they will, but there's a real opportunity to start 4-1 because we all know they're going to lose to Tennessee. But 4-1, that's a great debut for Oklahoma.
2 Ole Miss, 2 Mizzou, 2 LSU, home Bama, at Jordan-Hare. I don't know, dude. I think Oklahoma's in for a week. And think about this. Think about this. Think about being a Texas fan, being an OU fan right now. You're losing Gabriel. If you're a Sooners fan, you're losing Gabriel. They're keeping yours. You beat them, yet you lost the Big 12. They won, and they're in the playoffs. You lose your OC. They're like, I don't know, man. Weird. After it almost seems like nearly everything has gone wrong for Oklahoma since they won the Triple R. All right, coming up next here, let's get into some of the big losers in this new schedule. Keep it locked right. Yo, what's happening, yo? Welcome back to Rivals Downtown. T-Bob A-Bear and my guy, SEC Mike, host of the highest-rated SEC podcast, that SEC podcast here on Stadium. And we talked big scheduling winners out of the SEC. Now it's time to talk losers. And my God, Mike, I don't know who Billy Napier made so angry in Birmingham, but when it rains, it pours. On a year in which his job is going to be in the line, it is not even close who has the hardest schedule, not just in the conference, but in the entire country. and it is the Florida Gators. I feel so bad for this man. He's having to try to finish this recruiting class, and every time you hear Florida talked about public right now, it's just about how Billy Napier is definitely going to get fired next year. But it's not hard to see why. They just lost 5 games to end this year, and listen to these final 5 games that they have. Okay, they're going to, that's not even getting to the front, but they're going to have a bye week. Then they close with Georgia, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, at Florida State. Do yourself a favor. Google college football playoff top 25 and recognize that is 5 games in a row against top 15 teams, 33% of the top 15. I mean, it's unwinnable. It's undoable for Florida.
Right. And ironically, T-Bob, for years and years, people would always complain. Florida, they have an easy, at least particularly in the non-conference slate. I think last year going to Utah was the first time they had left the state of Florida for a non-conference game since the early 90s. Now they're loading this thing up at the worst possible time with 2 of the worst seasons ever for a debut coach in Gainesville, and now you give them this gauntlet, and that's just you were just talking about the back end. I don't know how many of the games at the front end they're going to be favored in, and I mean, I think, sad to say, T-Bob, I mean, I think a 4-win season is something that is probably going to be the expectation for the Florida Gators next year.
Now, explain yourself, SEC Mike. You have the LSU Tigers as the second biggest loser in this new schedule. What gives?
Well, some of it's their own doing, T-Bob. To your point, they're playing Southern Cal and UCLA in the first month.
Yeah.
I think LSU fans expect to win those games. So, again, I think there's ability to trip up if you lose to any of those. South Carolina on the road is your first SEC game. That's another one where they demand a win. Any of those 3, I think you lose in the first month. Brian Kelly's going to be facing some heat. And then look at, again, Ole Miss. That's going to be a tough game. Alabama, Texas A&M, Oklahoma to close the thing out. There's just landmines all over this thing for LSU, and I can already see it in my mind's eye here, T-Bob. I think if LSU stumbles out the gate, it's going to be another disappointing season for the Tigers.
Give it to me, Mike, okay? I don't want your cowardly Tennessee schedule with your UT Chattanooga to open. Or, oh, Mike, you're going to have a lot of fun November 23rd and 30th next year, huh? UTEP and at Vanderbilt? Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. Everybody, that's what appointment schedule. Watching. Get the hell out of here. 10 out of 12 Power 5 teams. LSU showing you cowards the light. Georgia, the 3rd biggest loser on this list. And this one I understand absolutely, Mike, because Georgia has been eating at the kids' table that is the SEC East for years now. And finally, it's like a welcome to the adults, welcome to the big boys club. They got to take on Alabama, Texas, and Ole Miss all on the road.
Yeah, I mean, what a gauntlet. And this was just a complete 180. The entire narrative all offseason was, hey, Georgia's got the easiest slate in the country. And they probably did. Now I think they arguably got the toughest in the entire country, T-Bob. But thankfully for them, we are expanding the college football playoff. We don't have to just win the East. We just got to be top 2. And I would, again, this is a different conversation for a different day, T-Bob, but being 3rd or 4th in the SEC, that may benefit you come playoff time because you don't have to go to the SEC championship. So this is a losing schedule, but at the end of the day, it may put Georgia right where they want to be.
Well, also think about this. I think being tested is good for Georgia. I think the fact that they didn't really run anybody good ended up really hurting them come SEC championship time, whereas Alabama had been punched in the mouth, had tasted blood, and was better for it. Speaking of Alabama, they get home games against UGA and Mizzou. They got to travel to LSU and OU. I actually thought that Alabama had this not so bad. Why do you think they're one of the big losers here?
Well, because you see every offseason, T-Bob, what you do, when you run to that Alabama schedule, you look at it and say, okay, where's that LSU game? Is it on the road? Is it at home? Maybe there's one other Georgia-type game where they could trip up. I look at this schedule, T-Bob. I'm seeing at Wisconsin week 3. Again, they'll be big favorites over Wisconsin. I get
They'll
it.
smoke
But then
Wisconsin.
right after that, Georgia. I mean, good luck with that one. At Tennessee, Mizzou, back-to-back. Mizzou just won 10 games. Tennessee, they're going to win 10 or 11 next year. At LSU, at Oklahoma, the Iron Bowl. I mean, every couple of weeks, I'm seeing potential losses for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And this is the first time I can genuinely say that in about a decade.
Wait, but hold on. No, Mike, no, we just played this game. We just said last year that this was going to be like, we spent all this offseason saying you're losing Will Anderson, you're losing Bryce Young, like LSU looks really good. Like, this is the year where they're going to lose 2 to 3 games. Are you already, you spent all year here on Rivals telling us that Tennessee was going to upset Alabama. You are the goofy meme. Are you just doing it again?
I was just a year premature. That's all it was, T-Bob. Next year's the year in the declining dynasty.
Yeah, I agree. Hell yeah. I support it, dude. I hope you're right, obviously. All right, coming up next here on Rivals Down South. Keep it locked as we'll close out another great show with some Pirtle talk. More Rivals coming up next. Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to Rivals Down South. Check it out. The U.S. Army Bowls featuring some of the top high school recruits from around the country will be streaming free on Stadium. You can tune in Monday, December 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Of course, these are the best players in America. They're the next players in America that you'll be cheering for on Saturday. And a lot of the time, the same guys you'll be cheering for on Sunday as well. So check that out, December 18th, 8 p.m. I'm very excited for that. Mike, let's get into some transfer portal news. Texas quarterback Maalik Murphy has entered the transfer portal. Side note, this is kind of one of the bummers to me about some of this, about the new college football that we're in. I love the transfer portal. I think it's great for the sport. We talked about it yesterday. But like, Maalik Murphy should have the ability to transfer, but also finish out this season with his team if he wanted to, without having to commit to spring, because he won them some games this year, and yet now he's not going to be able to finish this fight. Whatever. Maalik Murphy entering the portal. Does this make sense for other teams in the SEC to pursue, or is he just Joe Milton 2.0?
No, I absolutely think he is. I mean, he could have went to Florida last offseason, stayed in Austin. He's going to be a hot commodity, T-Bob. And I'm already hearing that if Carson Beck declares for the NFL, I think Georgia is going to make a run at Malik Murphy, and I would imagine they could get him. But I think another one to really keep your eye on is Auburn. They desperately need a quarterback, and I realize Arkansas just got one, but I think they would try to add two if KJ left.
Bro, so I know that Cam Newton's catching kind of a lot of crap right now for being out there and saying, these NFL quarterbacks are game managers or whatever. But I'm kind of like, well, let's be clear. Like Cam Newton could say that man was a monster. He won a national championship single-handedly. He went 15-1, won MVP, and went to the Super Bowl with Ted Ginn as his main receiver. If he wants to say that, he can do it. I'm not saying Malik Murphy's that at all. I mean, obviously, he's just more of a size comp. But look, it wasn't perfect by any means. I like what I saw out of Malik Murphy, though, when he was thrown into the fire at Texas this year. I like Hugh Freeze's ability to get the most in developed quarterbacks. The Malik Murphy to Auburn makes a lot of sense, though, again, that being 6'5", 238, Malik Murphy to a lot of places makes a lot of sense. Huge thank you to everyone at Stadium. Huge thank you, Dan, our wonderful producer. Huge thank you, SEC Michael. See you tomorrow on Stadium.
everybody. Welcome to Inside the Association. Yes, Cam Smith has a well-deserved vacation, so I'm Danny Kleppinger here filling in for him, and I get to reunite with one of my old co-hosts of another show. Now here joining me is Mark Rogandino, obviously a contributor for NBA TV. He's done NBA play-by-play. He is a degenerate like myself, loves to gamble. Rogo, good to see you.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Danny. And yes, it's great to be back on the airwaves here, on the small screen, if you will, talking some NBA action. And hopefully, maybe as we get into a couple of picks, maybe making some money for a couple of people like we did in the past, Danny.
Absolutely. Look, if you want some wagers on some of the action later tonight, make sure you stick around. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I do want to remind all of you to scan the QR code on the side of your screen. Make sure you send us your content and give us a follow on Instagram, Inside the association is the handle there. So make sure you hop on Instagram, you're probably on it already simultaneously. Just give us a nice little follow. And we're going to jump into the hot news of the day, Rogo, and that is Draymond Green, because it did not take long for us to learn about Draymond Green's punishment for striking Nurkic in the face. The league has suspended Draymond Green indefinitely. So how do you see the rest of this saga playing out?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is, listen, Draymond Green being on the court, being in the NBA is good for basketball. But his actions last night and things that we've seen kind of building up over the last couple of months and earlier this season, you take the Rudy Gobert incident, that is not good for the game. And so this is really going to hurt the Warriors. This is a team that was they were below 500, a team that was trying to find themselves in a tough matchup last night. And now the fact that you have Draymond suspended indefinitely, this is seriously going to take its toll. I think if you saw the comments from head coach Steve Kerr after the game, he was very poignant. He said, we need Draymond to win games. And that's an understatement, right? A five-tool player. He helps at the defensive end, former defensive player of the year. The fact that they're not going to have him for a longer amount of time. Remember that Rudy Gobert incident? That was a 5-game suspension. You can guarantee that Adam Silver is going to take it longer than that. They've said that he's going to need some sort of action to be taken. I think maybe a little bit of counseling. This is going to hurt the Warriors, Danny, without question.
Obviously, there's going to be a lot of speculation. What exactly does indefinitely mean? Because we've seen instances across the NBA where that term has been thrown out, and then it's just been a couple games or not enough games in a lot of people's eyes. What's the number of games that you think is the correct number, or right around the average of what he should be out for, in your opinion?
I mean, we're just into the show, Danny, and you're already putting me on the spot.
I'll answer too.
I think it's going to be 10 games at least to start. I think they double that number from what he had in the Rudy Gobert incident. And the hard part about it is that this is building up, right? This is not just one incident, not just two incidents. It has continued to be a number of incidences with regards to Draymond Green. And one of the things, you see Klay Thompson in the shot right there, one of the things that I thought was really interesting is if you heard Klay Thompson after the game, he was not defending Draymond Green. He was actually a little more poignant with his comments saying, listen, we can't have this. Draymond has to learn to control himself because they know how valuable he is to this ball club. And if they're going to have any chance at getting back to the top of the West, getting into the playoffs, they need a guy like him to be available. Just signed a huge contract before coming into the season for 4 years, and now you're going to be without this guy's services for maybe 15 games in this season. That's a pretty large chunk when you're talking about the Warriors.
And I absolutely think it should be that, Rogo, to be honest with you. 15 to 20 games, I think 20 games is the max here, but 15 to 20 is what's really going to impact the Warriors because they need him on the floor. It's kind of like if a player shows up late to practice every single day and they have to run for it, and then ultimately then the team has to start running for them. That's when that player starts to learn a lesson. Until it's impactful in his brain on how long he can be out, I don't think it makes that much of a difference to him. These cheap shots just have to stop, and I think the only way you do so is to create a big statement. I think more than 20 games probably too much, but a 15 to 20 seems reasonable to me because of how valuable he is to his team, and I think he has to feel it a little bit and really feel the absence to understand what's okay to do and what is not okay to do on the court. We need to move on, though, and talk about the other big drama of the evening, and that was Giannis Antetokounmpo, who scored 64 points in the Bucks' win over the Pacers. That was a franchise high for a single game, but afterwards was where all the drama happened. Granted, there was quite an amount of drama during the game as well. But afterwards, Giannis scuffled with the Pacers over the game ball. He wanted the game ball. The Pacers took it because their rookie scored his first points of the season. Naturally, typically that's what happens, right? Once that basket went in, surely Indiana was trying to get together to discuss, hey, make sure you grab the game ball on the way out. Well, Giannis wants it because he set a franchise record. Who's in the wrong here?
I'm gonna say, hey, Giannis is king, right? When it comes to in the NBA. Not only that, the game was played in Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the Bucks have their first right of refusal to that ball. This is going to be a case of he said here in this one, and I think that this moment was all building from the fact that this game got physical in the middle part of the game. Let's not forget, this is the third time that these teams met this season, with the Pacers winning the previous two, including that semifinal in the in-season tournament. So there is a budding rivalry and something brewing in terms of a fire between these two teams. That certainly is good for the NBA. But if you watch in the middle part of the game, there was a scuffle, and Bobby Portis got into it with a couple of the Pacer players. There was a flagrant one rewarded. There was double techs put out by the referees in this one. So I think that is part of how this built toward the end. And then for Giannis to put up 64 and absolutely blow the doors off the Pacers in this one, I think it was a little bit of a petty move from Indiana in this one, and that's part of the reason why they did say, oh, we don't know where the ball went. But I did hear a report that there was someone on the Bucks staff that reportedly said, I did get the game ball. So I think this is still going to unfold in the next 24 hours.
Well, Giannis was handed a ball, but he said it was not the game ball, that he played 35 minutes with that thing in his hand, and it did not feel like that. He's an expert on what that game ball felt like. And to be honest, I saw Richard Jefferson make a great comment, and I completely agree with him. If the rookie already has the ball in his possession, just pay him for it if you want it that badly. At least give him a nice little gesture and say, hey, man, I'll pay you for that ball. It means more to me for my 64 points. And then, someday down the line, that's a good story to tell. But do you think that this budding rivalry here between these two teams is good for the NBA? You mentioned it briefly, but I want to dive into that a bit more.
I wouldn't call it good, Danny. I would call it great, right? The Pacers haven't been relevant for quite some time in the NBA. Now, all of a sudden, with Tyrese Halliburton, coming over there and them adding some young players, and the fact that they got past the Bucks in that semifinal in-season tournament game and got to the final, ultimately losing to the Pacers, is only going to add fuel to the fire. Keep in mind, and you're going to want to circle these dates for viewing, January 1st and January 3rd, these teams meet again in another kind of rare scheduling back-to-back between the two. First on New Year's Day in Milwaukee, then 2 days later out in Indianapolis. This is going to continue to only fuel this fire between these two teams, and it's great for the NBA, especially over there in the Eastern Conference. The Bucks, as we know, they're kings, but the Pacers are trying to climb that ladder too.
Absolutely. When both these teams are winning, and then it can be as heated and as exciting as it is, the adversity there in each and every game, it definitely makes it a better matchup. But Rogo, as we're seeing across the NBA, that's not always the case, especially with the Detroit Pistons, whose losing streak has hit a whopping 21 straight games. The NBA record belongs to the 2016 76ers, who lost 28 straight. I'm sure no one wants that record whatsoever, or to even be in the same conversation with that record. But when you take a look at their schedule, where do you see this skid ending for them?
Well, let me first say this, Danny. I did not see this Pistons team being this bad, especially when they opened the season, I think, winning 2 of their first 3 games. I expected Cade Cunningham coming back healthy to, this season after missing time last season to be a huge piece of the puzzle. Obviously, you get a new coach in Monty Williams. He's great when it comes to tutoring of younger players. But we just showed you the schedule right there. Circle the date 1 week from tonight, Danny. They're home against the Utah Jazz, a team that I know we'll talk about a little bit later on here in the program. December the 21st. I mean, you look at those next 3 games on the road, very, very tough. They just got beat by 18 against the Sixers last night. Then you've got to go face the Milwaukee Bucks. That's no easy task. And then the last game of that 3-game roadie is down in Atlanta. And as we know, a lot of times when you're on the end of the longer extended road trip, it's tough to get that final victory of the last game. So I say 1 week from tonight, against the Utah Jazz, who are not a very good team this season, and particularly not a good team at all on the road. I think they pull it together, which means A, they stop the losing streak, and B, they won't have to hold that record.
Rogo, you and I are completely on the same page here. Absolutely have that one circled as their opportunity, because then it just gets worse after that. So if they don't win that Jazz game, that's starting to flirt with that record, and we're going to start taking a look at who else is after that, and it could potentially get even worse than that 2016 Sixers team. But I do think you make a great point about Atlanta, because some people could say, hey, they've got a day off before they play the Hawks, possibly could get a win there. But the Hawks already beat them once this season, and they beat them all 4 times last season. So it's not looking like it's coming against Atlanta, especially even though they have that day off beforehand. I agree with you. It's got to come against the Utah Jazz. Look, we've got so much more coming your way here on Inside the Association. Make sure you stick with us. Coming up, why not be bring some of this betting knowledge into the association. We've got some wagers lined up for you, but the big question is, will you ride with me, Rogo? That's in just a few minutes, but first, for those football fans out there, you can watch tomorrow's Stars of the Game right here on Stadium. Make sure you tune in on Monday, December 18th for the U.S. Army Bowl. See football's best young talent on one field, and it will be streaming for free right here on Stadium.